This afternoon we're going to make bomba di riso. Now I want to tell you what this is and the things you're going to need to make it. So bomba di riso is a dish made of rice. You might think of it as a filled cake, you might think of it as a pie, but it'll turn out in a bomb shape to make quite a nice centerpiece as a main course for the safari supper, which is going to raise plenty of money for St. Mary's Church, I hope. So this is an Italian dish. You don't see it very much in Britain. It comes from the region where my grandparents came from many years ago before they emigrated to South Wales. Traditionally, a dish like this could be taken on a picnic. It's often used as a celebration dish. So these are the things that you're going to need. First of all, just in terms of equipment, you're going to need a bomb-shaped mold, perhaps a bit like this. You could use a Pyrex dish like this. This would be fine. And I'll show you how to make them non-stick because you need to turn the dish out that way to serve it. You'll also need something to cook a casserole. So we're going to be braising two types of red sauce. I'm going to make you a meat version of the sauce. I'm going to make you a mushroom version of the sauce for the vegetarians. Both are really good. They both take quite a bit of time, and the good news about this dish is that it can pretty much all of it be made ahead of time, and the final bit can just be put in the oven while you're eating your first course. So let's just have a look at the ingredients that we're going to use. I'm going to make a meat sauce. So I've got here some skirt of beef. Now, this is from Simon Cutter at Model Farm. This is the skirt of beef. It's pasture-fed organic meat. This is as good as it gets. This piece is much bigger than you're going to need, but skirt of beef looks like this, and I'm going to cook it all today because it freezes very well. You don't need to use all of it, and when we've cooked it, I'll show you what you can do with some of it apart from making the bomba. So this is going to be a very good thing. You can use it for all sorts of things once you've cooked this. Both sauces are going to start with what we call sofrito, which is the holy trinity of vegetables. It's onions. I've got some nice white ones here. These came from Morrison's. You can use red onion, you can use ordinary brown onions. It doesn't matter. I just think these ones are quite sweet. I've got some carrots. I've got some celery, which we're going to chop, and we're going to soften that in a bit of olive oil. I've got some garlic that we're going to add to that. We're going to use lots of tomato puree in both versions of the sauce, and I'm going to bulk out the sauces a bit with some passata. Not everybody would do this. In Italy it might be a little bit frowned upon, but I think that this gives you quite a nice red sauce, and particularly if we're not going to use all of it today, then this will help it keep nicely and freeze and give you plenty more meals. So to bulk out the vegetarian sauce, I'm going to be using mushrooms. So I've got here some portobello mushrooms and I've got some chestnut mushrooms, but really the thing that's going to give both of these sauces a tremendous flavour are these. These are porcini mushrooms. These are ones that I've brought from Italy. We picked them up in Bardi Market, and these have come from Borgo Taro, the next valley over to the valley where my family are from, the Taro Valley, and these are a very special thing indeed. These are absolutely beautiful, and I wish you could smell this because they smell so fantastic and pungent. It's such a wonderfully deep mushroom smell. These are dried porcini mushrooms that you can buy in, I got these in Morrison's. These are a bit darker, not quite the quality, but they will taste fine. And when we rehydrate them, I'll show you that the soaking liquor will be important for the dish. It'll help us give quite a deep flavour to both sauces. And you can find these in Morrison's and Sainsbury's. I know Waitrose do them. They're fairly widely available. So dried porcini mushroom. In Ross High Street, you may be able to buy them in Field Fare. So to add liquid to the red sauces, I'm going to use some liquor. I'm going to use cider. This is local cider from Cleve Orchard. made by Lewis Scott, just down the road from us here at Cider Cottage. This is very nice, but you can use anything. Just shop bought cider will be fine. You can use white wine, you can use red wine. Doesn't matter, it's your preference. What I would say, if you're using red wine, don't overdo it, because that can turn your sauce a bit sharp. And we're going to need quite a lot of liquid, because these sauces are going to need some cooking time, quite a lot of reduction. So that's what we're going to be using in the red sauces. I'm going to show you how to fill the meat before we cook it. To do that, we're going to need a bit of butter, we're going to need a bit of garlic, and we'll use a little bit of herbs. I've got some rosemary here from the garden and some flat leaf parsley, but we're not going to overdo the herbs in any of these dishes. We want these ingredients to speak for themselves. I've got some lovely butter here from Nether End Farm, just across on the Severn side near Lydney. And this is Parmigiano-Reggiano. This is Parmesan cheese. It comes from a farm down the road from Bardi in Italy. This is the real deal. It's a wonderful thing. You can use Parmesan cheese that you buy here. Do try and buy it in a block rather than getting ready grated. It's two different things. And you can buy very good quality Parmigiano-Reggiano at Aldi and at Morrison's, Sainsbury's. All supermarkets do it. You can use Grana Padano instead. That's not so bad, but don't tell the people from Parma that I said that. I've got some breadcrumbs, which I've just made from some stale bread. You can buy breadcrumbs at Morrison's and at Sainsbury's. I've got some homemade chicken stock, which we're going to be using for the rice, but you can use a cube. A decent quality cube will be fine. I've got a vegetable cube here for the vegetarian version. And we're going to need, most importantly of all, good Italian rice. This is Arborio rice, which is quite a fat grain of rice, which will plump up nicely and go very creamy when we cook it. And again, you can buy this in various Italian brands. This is Scotti. I found this in Sainsbury's this week, but you can see Gallo in Morrison's and most supermarkets. And most supermarkets do their own range. Arborio is very good. Carnaroli is excellent. If you see Vialone Nano, buy it. It's fantastic. But this is fine. This is what we're going to use today because this is what I could find. So the next step we're going to take is to fill the meat and prepare it for our stracotto, which is our braised beef red sauce. So I've chopped much of the vegetables that I showed you earlier, and I've got some of them here that I'm going to need to fill the beef. So here's my skirt of beef. I didn't tell you first of all that this was about 800 I was going to say kilograms. That would be quite a piece of beef, wouldn't it? This was 800 milligrams of beef, so probably about 1.5 pounds. You won't need anything like this amount, but it's worth cooking it all anyway. So what I'm going to do to fill this beef is, the first thing is I'm going to put some butter on it. Now this is salted butter, so I'm going to go easy with my seasoning when I come to do it, because this is lovely butter. It is quite salty. So I'm just going to spread a bit of butter around the meat like this. So we've got this basting inside our meat as we cook. So that looks fine. Just get rid of that. So I chopped some of the garlic. We've got some garlic here. And I'm just going to add a little bit of that onto the meat. Again, not going berserk with it. We just want the suggestion of these flavors. So here then we've got our herbs. We've got some chopped rosemary, which I'm going to add to the stuffing there. And I've got some chopped parsley, which I'm going to add to the stuffing. So we've done that. It's looking like something we'd want to eat. And here I've soaked are porcini mushrooms. And I'm just going to use a few of these. I've just submerged them in boiling water for about 10 minutes. I'm going to use a few of these. Let's choose a few nice ones. Here we go. I'm just going to lay a few on. So we've got some of this lovely mushroomy goodness inside the meat. Here we go. One more, I think, should do it. There. No, one more. Feeling a bit mean. There we are. We put the rest aside, we'll need them later. I'm going to add a few rasps of nutmeg. That'll be plenty. I'm going to add a little black pepper. And just a little bit of salt. This is Maldon salt. You can use any salt that you can get your hands on. Now, we're going to roll this up. And I'm going to tie it with string, but I've got a few cocktail sticks here to help me. If you can't tie it with string, you can use cocktail sticks to keep it together. You could use barbecue skewers because they're quite strong. You just need to snip those off. So let's just start to fold our meat into a roll, just taking care to try and keep this stuffing inside. There we go. I'll just get a cocktail stick to help me out here. I'm going to take these out when I've tied it, but I'll just put a couple in to hold it together. Now, if this comes apart a bit in the cooking, it doesn't matter. It's the taste you're after. So effectively, that's going to be what we're cooking very slowly in our stracotto di manzo, our beef braised casserole. So the next phase will be at the cooker, and this will look really nice by then, I promise. So here we are at the business end of the kitchen, and we're going to start sealing the meat and doing the cooking. So I chopped the vegetables that I showed you earlier. I've tied the meat up a little bit neater. I'm going to start with searing the meat. In our pans here, we've got a good dollop of olive oil, just getting hot. I'm going to pop the meat in first. That's going in there. And we're going to try and get a bit of colour on it. We don't want to cook it too deeply, because we don't want it to go tough. But we do want a bit of colour on it, so that's going in there now. And I'm just putting our diced mushrooms. I've diced some, I've sliced some. I'm just popping them in there. I've realised I've got a meaty hand, so I'm just going to go and wash that. Here, let's have a look. That's looking good. Just give it a little turn over, it's quite heavy. Okay, so you've got the idea. We're going to brown this meat. We're going to get a bit of colour on these mushrooms, and when I've done that, I'll come back to you. The mushrooms are reducing a bit, getting a bit of colour. I'm just going to add a little bit of seasoning to the mushrooms now. I'm not going to season the meat. I don't want it to go tough. And you can see that it's getting quite a nice amount of colour on it. And let's have a look at the meat sitting over there, all nice and brown. I've turned the heat right down on the meat pan. The mushrooms have reduced quite a bit. I'm just getting rid of this liquid which is going to cook off, and I'm going to add a bit of butter to both pans in just a second. So I'm adding the butter now to the meat pan. That's just going to sizzle away. I'm going to do the same with the vegetarian sauce pan in a second, just when that liquid has reduced. I'm just going to melt that. Still cooking quite quickly. And now I'm going to add the beginning of the sofrito. So we're going to, in here with quite a nice lot of chopped onion. I'm going to add the same to the mushroom sauce in just a second. I've got some grated carrot. I'm going in with about a half of that. I'm going to keep a bit for the mushroom sauce. in a second, and I'm adding about half, again, grated celery going in there. I'm going to keep a bit for the mushroom sauce. I can be a bit more generous with the celery in here. There. Now that needs to soften and reduce. That's going to take quite a few minutes, so I'll just show you now. I'm going to add butter to the mushrooms, and to each of the pans now I'm just going to add a bit of the chopped rosemary, and in with the mushrooms I'm putting a little chopped parsley as well, a little bit in with the meat, keep the rest for later. So I'm going to add the sofrito now to the vegetarian sauce. So in I'm going with the rest of my onions, the rest of the carrot, and what remains of the celery, and in it all goes. Now this needs to reduce down, become translucent, and this is a process that you need to be patient about. This will need time. Give it plenty of time, get those flavors to get to know each other. I'm just turning the heat down on the vegetarian sauce pan while those flavors all start to come together and fry. We want it to fry, not to boil. But before I just cut away from that, I'm going to show you that I've chopped up what remains of the porcini mushroom into quite small bits, and I strained off the liquor. You need to be careful when you're pouring out the liquor, because porcini mushrooms, when they're dried, are unwashed. So you might get a bit of dust and a bit of grit in the bottom of the soaking liquor. So strain it off into another jug or into another bowl, and just be careful to throw away that last bit, because it can be a bit nasty and you won't want it. So I'm just going to let those get to know each other now, go translucent, and I'll be back when we're ready to add the next ingredients. You can see that everything is reduced down quite a bit, and that the onions are looking quite translucent. So we're going to add a bit of garlic now to each of the pans. This isn't going to require quite so much cooking as the other ingredients. So we're going to put the garlic in. I'm going to add the porcini mushrooms at the same time, mainly to the mushroom sauce, a little bit to our meat sauce, because it really does give a depth of flavour that you can't get from any other ingredient. It's quite something. So careful now not to catch this garlic. You want it just to soften, but you don't want to burn it. And you can see that some of the mushrooms are getting a bit of colour on them, which is nice. That's what we want. So here I'm going in with tomato puree. I'm going to be quite generous with it. So you want to give this a good fry at this stage. I'm going to add actually rather more to the meat sauce. This is about half a tube. And I want this to gloss everything that's in each pan. Here we go. And I want to give it a good fry, because this will really give a good depth of flavour as well. At this stage, I'm going to add, just in case our sauce, the tomato, doesn't turn out to be very sweet, I'm just going to put a teaspoon of sugar into each of the pans. Now on the meat pan, the other thing that I want in here is the juice that's run off the meat, and that meat can go back in now. So I think as far as our mushroom sugo is concerned, we're ready to go in with some passata. So I'm putting the whole bottle, this is a small bottle, but I'm putting the whole lot in. Now we're adding passata to the meat sauce. I'm going to rinse out the bottle in a moment so that we've got some liquid. These sauces need to braise very slowly, so we need plenty of liquid. Just shake up the bottle and add it to the sauce. Give it a stir. That'll come back to the simmer shortly. Here's the soaking liquor. Most of it's going in the mushroom sauce to give that depth of mushroom flavour. The rest we're adding to the meat sauce. This again needs to come back to the simmer. I'm using the cider. Most of it I'm going to put into the meat sauce. Put a drop into the mushroom sauce. Finish it off in the meat sauce because that needs more liquid, more braising. So finally we're just going to add a bit of parsley to each of the pans. More parsley in the mushroom sauce. And I've got 2 bay leaves which I'm just going to drop into the meat sauce. Push everything in, give it a good old stir, get it amalgamated, because we're going to put the lids on so that these can braise. The meat's going to need a few hours. The mushroom sauce will be ready in about 40 minutes from when you add the herbs. These pans are ready to be covered. I'm covering the meat sauce with a cartouche, just a piece of greaseproof paper, which we're pushing down onto the surface of the sauce for a good intense reduction. Push it into the edges. This is going to need to sit there on a low simmer for at least 2, probably 3 hours. It won't come to any harm in 4. Just check how much liquid you've got though. Keep stirring it. Turn that heat right down. Then the mushroom sauce is going on a very low heat as well. And I'm just going to cover that with the lid of the pan, which I'm going to leave ajar, just by putting the spoon on the side. So let's make the risotto. This is going to be used to line the bomb, or you can just serve it as a risotto if you want. So in here I've got some more chopped onion, and actually because I didn't have that much onion, I've chopped up half a bulb of fennel here as well. But just use the onion, anything you want really. You could put a bit of leek in, some more carrot if you fancy that, a bit more celery. But I want to keep it simple, and I think the fennel-y taste is quite nice. So I'm just going to soften that down now. Just turn the heat up a little bit. It's looking nice and translucent. There was just a little bit of butter and oil in the pan. I'm putting in now, that's 350 grams of Arborio rice, and that needs to toast. Just while I'm showing you that, in here I've got chicken stock. That's about 1 1/4 litres in there, and if you run out of chicken stock, you can always just add a little bit more hot water from the kettle. So that's ready to go, nice and hot in there. I'm just going to turn that heat up to toast this off a little bit and get the risotto cooked fairly quickly. So that's starting to smell quite nutty, which is nice. We just add a little bit of liquid. You can add white wine. I'm just going to add a little bit of vermouth because I put fennel in there. So I'm just going to carry on with that sort of fennel-y theme because this needs to. And now it's time to start adding the stock. Just add a bit at a time because we need to keep stirring. Just a ladle and a bit each time. Now if you're making the vegetarian version of this, you'll just be using vegetable stock. You could just use water. If you're using water, in here when you make that sofrito, I'd use a little more onion. I'd definitely use celery and carrot. And then you'll have your stock being made in there as you do the cooking. You need a bit of salt as well. So stirring it like this is breaking down the starches in the rice and starting to give us a nice creamy texture to everything. In all, this will take between 20 and 25 minutes from adding the first ladle of hot hot stock. But that should be fine. And you just, on you go like that, adding ladle by ladle, stirring, breaking those starches down all the time. I'm putting the bomb molds together, and they need to be non-stick. So I've softened a bit of butter, and I've buttered the mold. And in here I've got my breadcrumbs, and I've just been putting them around like this. I've done it in one. There we are, and that should give us a nice non-stick mold. Because turning these out is a bit of a risk. So the mushroom ragout, this is ready. So I'm going to turn that off. In the stracotto, you can see that this is having a lovely bath in there. This is going to need another 2 hours probably. The risotto is ready pretty much. It's still quite runny. You can test the grains of rice. They're good. They should have a bit of bite but no chalkiness. So this is about right. I'm going to add now butter and Parmesan cheese. The butter needs to be cold, so I've cubed it up. And this is best done off the heat. I'm going to add about 100 grams of butter. I've got here 100 grams of Parmesan cheese grated. That's all going in. You can see how creamy that is now. And I'm adding some parsley just to finish it. So that needs to sit and relax now for a little while. It's not going to come to any harm. You can let it go quite a lot cooler before putting it in the molds to build the bomba up. Our mushroom sugo is finished. That's ready to go. Our risotto is cooked and ready to fill the bomba tins. Our meat is cooked. That's just resting. I'm going to cut some of that in a minute to show you what you can do with it if you decide you're going to bail out of the whole thing now, because you don't have to assemble a bomba. You could just have the rice. You could serve these sauces with pasta. You could slice up some of the meat. You could have the meat with some roast potatoes and salad. It would be lovely. So if you don't want to do the assembly, everything is good to eat now. While I was away, I lined these with butter and breadcrumb, and I've put the rice now as a lining into the mold, and we're going to fill these up, one with the mushroom sauce, one with the meat, and we've got the spare sauce, the cooking juices from the sauce in that pan there. But I just want to show you the meat first, because you can abandon this assembly if you want. If you're not keen on having the rice, you could just have this meat with some roast potatoes and a salad, something like that, or a few green vegetables. I just want to show you that what we've got here. I'm just going to take a couple more slices, which is all I'm going to need to fill up one of these. I'm going to cut it up like this. I've taken the string off, obviously. So this is after about 3 hours cooking we've got here. So there's our result. I'm going to add some of this sauce from the pan. I'm just going to add that to the bomba. Put it in there. That's one. This one I'm going to fill with the sugo of mushrooms, which you can see has got a lovely consistency now. I've got a little of the rice left over. So there it is with our meat version. And here we've got it now on the vegetarian version. And there we've got 2 bomba di riso. These are going to go into the oven at about 180 degrees, and they're going to have 20 minutes to half an hour. You can keep looking at them. I'm actually going to put a little bit more breadcrumb over this side. I'm going to add a little bit of butter into the breadcrumb just to give it a golden crust. Okay, so here's the risky bit. This has come out of the oven and I've given it a couple of minutes to relax. I've just run around the edge there with a sharp knife. Just going to try and turn it out. It's nice and golden on the top. I'm just a bit worried it might be a little bit soft, but anyway, let's see if we can manage it. Imminent disaster beckons. Bomba di riso.